there's also a story about this gentleman, Paul G. He's in Washington State. He's a natural organic gardener, and he's got his own take about on what we traditionally believe gardening, how gardening works. I mean, he's got his own ideas, and they work. I mean, he's got luscious fruits and vegetables that he's growing. Basically, his idea is using mulch, arbor chips as the soil, or as it breaks down, as a fertilizer. I mean, you put the mulch on top of the soil, and it rains, or you water it in, and it becomes like compost tea, and the leaves and the needles fertilize the plant roots. And what he's found was that these, and also provides oxygen, which the roots need. So he's found that the roots that have to struggle to get through the soil, they're looking for food, water, oxygen. They're bitter. I mean, they actually have an attitude, like emotion, and that's why they taste bitter, because their life has been bitter. It's been hard. And these plants that have this wonderful loam, full of water and nutrients, minerals, and oxygen. I mean, they're full of water. They taste so luscious, so they respond to the environment. And so that kind of my next question was say you have a fire, and the fire elementals are involved in that, I assume, and then there's the trees that are being burnt. They're trying to survive. So is there some kind of a confrontation between the two, or how does that work? I'm not sure how that works when nature is with nature, and the elementals are apparently, at least apparently, in a conflict or confrontation. I don't know, fire and the trees being burnt. Say, what is happening there in terms of on the inner side of things, the real side?
To me, that's a very good question.
Everybody's trying to survive,
Yeah, exactly. But I think in certain cases, that it would be a joint agreement. For instance, when, because our souls do the same thing. Let's say you have a plane go down. There's an agreement between all those souls, in their contract, that when that time comes, that they'll all go together. I mean, the humans aren't aware of that, but the souls themselves are. So I think at times probably the plants that collide with each other, if you would want to put it that way. I think that some of them do have an agreement, and that's just a situation that they will accept if they know that overall they're good for it. I mean, sometimes fires are good. It cleans out the area. It gets rid of all the brush, and it opens up areas so that air can come and sunshine can come. And sometimes those are, really good controlled fires. The other ones, unfortunately, particularly when they're set by man, that is, that's a disaster. And I'm sure at that time, it's like, hey, I'm a fire, I've been set, I've got to burn, and the tree goes, well, geez, I wish it wouldn't come this way. But I also have a feeling too that the animals know what's happening, and many of them they sense that and they flee. Obviously, that's part of the survival, but it's also part of the connection between it all. So, I think that's hard when you've got the circumstances with fires that are set or fires that are not expected. Yeah, you're going to have some confrontation there,
but I think it's interesting that that Claudia mentioned that the hurricane was, I think she said it was angry, or but this is like when the intent behind it, the purposely created hurricane from HARP or from engineering. I mean, it was an outside force. It wasn't natural. So they may be angry because they're being manipulated, the forces
Correct.
of nature. So that makes it a lot, that's another other element in this equation, and then there's the, let's see what I was going to say. I just learned about the pre-Columbian days, 1491. Columbus landed in 1492 on this continent here, but in 1491 the Indians were, they found that they were basically pyromaniacs. they were always doing controlled fires because it like cleared the land of insects and created new brush and new growth, and they really had a system going, but that it worked. It really worked for them. They weren't doing it maliciously, and they knew what they were doing. They work with nature, but they did do purposeful fires and all that.
Right. My understanding of the Indians is that they work with nature, and if they were going to do that, then they would talk to the area and they would pre-plan for it and do their ceremonies to work with the spirits. So it's too bad we can't be more like the Indians.
Yeah, well, we're our presentation. We're moving towards that. We understand and we're aware of this, that we could very well work closer to the elementals, to nature, to the animals, like the indigenous people were aware of and doing. Actually, before a hunt, they would honor the victim there for the food he provided or she provided. So and then it could be done. It's just agreement. So I'll give it back to Tim. Tim, are you still there?
Yeah, that's interesting. I was wondering, do the fairies mention anything about, are they aware of where they get their education and their guidance from?
Yes. Pretty much any of your higher vibration or higher frequency beings, they have what we call, there's a term for it. It's just an all-knowing. So whatever information they need when they need it, they have it. It's like a direct line. We unfortunately, as humans, we've been kind of cut off from our agreement from coming to the third dimension. But they have the ability to, if they need to know something, they just ask and the answer's given, whatever it may be. So that would be, I would say, that would be their training. But that they don't really need to be trained. They might say, how do I do this? How do I help this green leaf? And the information would come, or something like that. And so I don't think they really have a training like we do. Humans need to be trained, or we think we do. We have more innate knowledge than we realize. We just don't use it.
Yeah, thanks, Nancy. Another thing, do the fairies, have you heard them sing any songs?
Oh, they are very. Usually, when I'm working with them, they're not singing, but I'll tell you, they are extremely happy. And they, they're very vibrant, very. Gosh, what do I want to say? The dancing. I mean, like they'll just. I feel them. I don't see them. Someday I will, but I just feel them like flutter around me. They're just like they don't sit still too long. Might sit on my shoulder. I feel them there, and then all of a sudden they're gone. They're just flitting around, yick and yakking and talking. And so they have a lot, they have a lot of energy, and they do like to sing, but they haven't sung me any songs. I will have to ask them. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you might mention that the New You song, if they need any real guidance or education on anything to find out for themselves if it works for them. Another thing is, do you see yourself as a being that the fairies are able to express what they want to people through you?
Yes, I do feel I've had had a wonderful reading with a lady, and she said that they have made me their ambassador. So I consider that quite an honor. So and my whole mission that he read a little earlier is really, that's what my mission is. And I know there are multiple ways for people are working on trying to make us all aware to change our environment and our society. And I just feel that the fairy energy is one that is just going to be another avenue that some people would relate to it. Sometimes you might hear a cause and you like it, but you just maybe don't like the way the particular organization is going about it, which is fine. That's where humans, we all have different opinions. But I just kind of have this feeling and this knowledge that through this vehicle, it will bring about the magic, and I call it the energy of fairy magic. And that energy is something that we can all tap into once we are aware of it and we know how to.
Yeah, thanks again. I'm wondering if anybody else has any questions for Nancy while they have the opportunity to ask anything about the fairies or the elementals.
Sandy, are you able to talk at all, or not at all? Because Sandy's got a lot of experiences too with the elementals and stories. Are you able to talk at all?
I'm sorry. It seems when I start talking, I cough, and I don't know if I could do it or not. But I've had a lot of experiences with the fairies and the gnomes and the salamanders and the people of the air, the slights or sylphs. And in my backyard, I sang our song to the granite. Excuse me. When I swallow, it starts to. And till the granite sang the new you back to me. My house is on granite. They had to take out the granite by dynamite to put the house on top of it. And so I wanted a good foundation. So I sang to it until it sang back. And then in my backyard, I have a little forest and all kinds of wild flowers there. I didn't plant any of them, but they seemed to appear. I also had two, wild rose bushes appear out of nowhere, and they just are beautiful. They're big. I don't know where they came from. And it was in my forest and around a tree in the front. And as I'm singing to the granite, I thought, well, I'm going to sing to the flowers. And as soon as I started singing to the flowers, this beautiful little fairy with iridescent wings, I could see her on a daisy. And she was flitting around. It was so beautiful. And then I sang the new you to her until she sang it back with me. And then I progressed to the trees, and I sang to the trees, the new you, until they vibrated to it and were singing it. And then I saw a little gnome. I have a group of granite rocks in the back where they left them, and there was a little gnome sitting on there. He had a smushed down. Yeah, it was so cute. Smushed down, He had a smushed down caramel-colored hat, and so I talked to him a little bit and sang "New You," and he sang it back. And pretty soon, they're all singing together, in my backyard, and it sounded like a symphony. It was all in harmony.
Oh, that's beautiful. Now, what is this song, New You?
Val, I'm kind of losing the voice here. Do you want to?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for your sharing, Sandy.
Thank
you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Nancy, it's a connection. Basically, it replaces I'm sure you're familiar with Om and all these other mantras and sounds that the spiritual paths and religions have used throughout the ages. Well, this is basically the updated version. It's the one that connects to we call it the real universes, or the real life, real reality that just is. So you might try it before bed. This is a suggestion. 10-15 minutes before bed, it goes like this: New you. Just do that over and over. Sing it, and then see what happens. See what you're shown. Maybe the fairies too, like with Sandy, they're going to respond to this most definitely, and they can even wake up more to what they're doing, and have a more of a richer life from this sound. So something to try.
I love it.